Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. Hello everyone, before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get back to the story. As the evening wore on, Emily found herself walking through the elegant ballroom, trying her best to blend in with the guests who were laughing and chatting effortlessly. The grand chandelier above cast a warm, golden glow over everything, making the room look even more beautiful than she had imagined. But she still felt out of place. She wasn't supposed to be here. She had only come to this gala by sheer accident, and now, she was standing among the city's elite. Her dress felt too plain, her shoes too worn. She felt like a stranger in a world where everyone else seemed to know exactly what they were doing. Grant, on the other hand, stood near the bar, his eyes scanning the crowd. He had grown used to these kinds of events, where everyone tried to impress one another with their wealth and status. But tonight, he wasn't interested in small talk or the usual shallow exchanges. His thoughts kept drifting back to the strange encounter he had with Emily earlier. She was different. There was something refreshing about her honesty, something genuine. It was rare to meet someone who didn't expect anything from him. It felt real. The sound of footsteps approaching broke his thoughts, and he turned to find Emily standing before him again, looking slightly nervous, but determined. Her cheeks were flushed from the heat of the room, and her eyes flickered with uncertainty. She had hesitated at first, but something told her that this was an opportunity she couldn't let slip by. She had to stop thinking of herself as an outsider. Tonight could be her chance to make something of herself. "Hey, I was wondering if I could get another drink," Emily said, trying to sound casual, even though her heart was racing. She wasn't sure why she felt so nervous. Maybe it was because Grant had been so different from anyone she had met before. Or maybe it was the fact that she didn't belong here, and yet he seemed to see her as more than just a mistake. Whatever it was, she couldn't shake the feeling that this night was changing something inside her. Grant turned towards her with a smile, his eyes warm. "Of course, I'll get you something," he replied, his voice smooth, almost reassuring. "You seem like you're getting the hang of this," he added with a playful glint in his eyes. Emily couldn't help but laugh softly. "I'm trying. But I don't think I'll ever get used to all this." Grant chuckled, looking around at the crowd. "Yeah, it can be overwhelming. But you'll find your way. This place, it's just a show for most people. But I have a feeling you're not like most people." She raised an eyebrow. "And what makes you think that?" Grant's smile softened as he leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "Because you don't look like you're trying to impress anyone. You're just here. And that's rare." His words hit her like a wave, surprising her. She hadn't expected him to say something like that, but somehow, it felt real. In a room full of pretense and fake smiles, it was a relief to hear someone speak with such honesty. "Thanks," Emily replied, unsure of what else to say. She felt a strange connection to him, something she couldn't explain. The night seemed to stretch on, but it didn't feel as uncomfortable as it had at first. The more they spoke, the more she felt like she was beginning to understand him, not just as the wealthy CEO everyone whispered about, but as a man who, deep down, was just trying to figure things out like anyone else. As the conversation continued, Emily felt herself loosening up. They talked about everything from the absurdity of the high society events to their shared love for simple pleasures, like good food and quiet moments. There was no pressure between them, just two people connecting in a way neither of them had expected. For the first time that evening, Emily wasn't just a waitress, she was someone with a story, with thoughts and dreams that mattered. Grant, on the other hand, found himself drawn to her in a way he hadn't anticipated. He had met so many people who only cared about his money, his connections, but with Emily, it was different. She didn't see him as a stepping stone, or a prize to win. She was real. She made him laugh. And for a man who had spent years in the fast-paced world of business, that was something he hadn't experienced in a long time. Eventually, the night drew to a close, and the guests began to filter out of the ballroom, heading for their cars or private jets. Emily stood by the door, feeling an unexpected sense of calm. She hadn't expected to connect with anyone tonight, especially not with someone like Grant. But here she was, feeling more at peace than she had in a long time. Grant, as if sensing her thoughts, turned to her one last time before she left. "I'm glad you came tonight. It was a pleasure getting to know you." His voice was soft, sincere. Emily smiled, nodding slightly. "Yeah, it was unexpected. But I'm glad I came too." As she walked out of the ballroom, the cool night air hit her face, and she felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Tonight had started as a mistaken invitation meant for someone else, but in the end, it had brought her to a place she never thought she'd be. Not just in a fancy room full of strangers, but in a moment that felt real. A moment she would never forget. The days after the gala passed quickly, but the feeling of that night lingered in Emily's mind. She couldn't shake the thought of Grant. There was something about him, his confidence, his warmth, his effortless charm that left her thinking about him long after they parted ways. She hadn't expected to feel this way. After all, he was a billionaire CEO, and she was just a waitress trying to get by. It felt like the kind of connection that only happened in movies. But as much as she tried to ignore it, every time she passed by the empty restaurant or sat at her small kitchen table, she found herself wondering if she would ever see him again. Grant, on the other hand, couldn't get Emily out of his head. Every time he walked through the glass doors of his penthouse or sat at his desk in the sleek Carter Enterprises office, he found his thoughts drifting back to the woman he had met at the gala. She was unlike anyone he had ever met before. No pretensions, no hidden motives. Just honesty. He hadn't realized how much he had missed that kind of connection until he saw her smile. He had spent so much time in a world filled with business deals and power plays that it was easy to forget what it was like to simply talk to someone without all the layers of expectation. He thought about reaching out, but something held him back. Was it too soon? Was it just a fleeting feeling, or was there something more? The next week, as Emily was cleaning up after her shift at the diner, she received an unexpected call. The number on her phone was unfamiliar, but the voice on the other end was unmistakable. It was Grant. "Emily," Grant's voice came through, smooth and warm, just as she remembered. "I hope you're doing well. I've been thinking about you, and I wanted to ask if you'd be interested in meeting for coffee sometime. No big gala, just a quiet place to talk." Her heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected to hear from him again. But hearing his voice, calm and sincere, made her want to agree immediately. Still, she hesitated for a moment, unsure of what to say. "Coffee?" she asked, her voice wavering slightly. "I thought you might be too busy for something like that." She quickly added, "But, sure. That sounds nice." Grant chuckled softly. "Well, I'm not as busy as everyone thinks," he said, with a hint of amusement. "I just wanted to see if you'd be open to spending some time with me outside of all the chaos. Maybe we can talk about whatever you'd like. No agenda." Emily smiled to herself, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I'd like that," she said, still processing how easy it was to talk to him. "I'll meet you, but no fancy restaurants this time, okay? Just a regular coffee shop." "Deal," Grant replied, the warmth in his voice making her heart flutter. "I'll pick you up at noon." The moment the call ended, Emily sat down at the small table in her apartment, her mind racing. This wasn't the kind of situation she was used to. It felt different. She wasn't sure if it was the invitation itself or the fact that Grant had asked for something so simply casual meeting, no strings attached. But whatever it was, she couldn't deny the pull she felt toward him. Her thoughts returned to the gala and their conversation. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she had a chance to connect with someone on a real level. No pretense. No expectations. On the day they were set to meet, Emily dressed casually, just as she promised. No fancy clothes, no makeup, just her. She arrived at the small coffee shop, her nerves creeping up as she waited at a table by the window. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the air, and she tried to calm her racing thoughts. Was this really happening? Was she really going to meet him again? Grant walked in shortly after, his familiar presence cutting through the sea of other customers. He smiled when he saw her, and it felt like the weight of the world had lifted from her shoulders. He was wearing a simple jacket, no designer labels, just looking like an ordinary guy. It was nice. Comfortable. He didn't try to impress her. And for Emily, that meant more than anything. "You look great," he said, pulling out a chair and sitting across from her. His voice was warm, just like before. "How have you been?" Emily smiled, feeling her nerves ease. "I've been all right. Just the usual stuff. Work, home, repeat." She shrugged lightly. "But it's been good." They talked for hours, just two people enjoying a simple conversation, the kind that felt so rare for both of them. Emily learned about Grant's childhood, his struggles with family expectations, and his desire to step outside of the world he had built. And Grant listened as Emily shared her hopes for the future, her dreams of opening a small art studio, and her fear of never truly making it. There was no talk of business. No mention of the gala or the pressure they both felt to fit into different worlds. Just two people finding common ground in a world that often felt like it didn't care. As the afternoon sun began to set, Emily realized how much she had enjoyed their time together. It was more than just a coffee date, it was a connection she hadn't expected. She hadn't expected any of this. But somewhere between the coffee and the laughter, she knew something had shifted. This wasn't just a simple meeting. This was the beginning of something. But what? She didn't know yet. She only knew that, for the first time in a long time, she felt like she was exactly where she needed to be. Grant stood up as they finished their drinks, his smile lingering as he looked at her. "I'm really glad we did this, Emily," he said quietly. "I think we should do it again sometime." Emily nodded, feeling a spark of hope ignite inside her. "Yeah, I'd like that too." As the days passed after their coffee date, Emily couldn't help but think about Grant. He had become a constant in her mind, but more than that, he had started to feel like something more than just a rich businessman. There was an undeniable connection between them, one that had nothing to do with his wealth or status. They talked frequently, casually at first, exchanging messages about nothing in particular, but with every conversation, Emily found herself drawn to him in ways she hadn't expected. His warmth, his genuine interest in her, made her start to think about what was possible, what could really happen between them. Grant, too, couldn't shake the thoughts of Emily. The more they spoke, the more he realized that this wasn't just a casual encounter for him. He had started to look forward to their time together, whether it was a quick text or a call that lasted longer than it probably should. The way she laughed, the way she shared her thoughts and dreams with such honesty, it was refreshing. For a man who had spent so many years surrounded by business meetings, deals, and the suffocating expectations of his family, Emily was different. She didn't want anything from him. She didn't care about his wealth or the company he ran. She simply cared about him as a person. And it was in that simplicity that he found something he hadn't realized he was missing. One day, after several weeks of these quiet, growing exchanges, Grant invited Emily out again. This time, he suggested they meet at one of his favorite spots, a quiet little park on the edge of the city where he often went to clear his mind. Emily hesitated for just a moment, her instinct telling her to be cautious, but something about the idea of spending time with him in a setting away from the chaos of the city seemed perfect. So, she agreed. Sure, I'd like that, she replied. Let's meet tomorrow afternoon. When Emily arrived the next day, she felt the familiar rush of excitement as she saw Grant waiting by the park bench, looking relaxed, with his sleeves rolled up and his hair slightly tousled by the breeze. It was a different side of him, one she hadn't seen in the fancy suits and boardrooms he usually occupied. As she approached him, he stood up with a warm smile, his eyes lighting up when they made contact. Hey, he greeted her, his voice easy, and for a moment, she almost forgot about the world around them. It felt like they were the only two people there. Hey, she replied, feeling a little nervous, but also completely at ease in his presence. This is nice, she said, looking around at the green space surrounding them. It's different from what I expected from you. Grant laughed softly. I guess I'm not all business. This is where I come to recharge, you know? To get away from everything for a bit. It helps me clear my head. He gestured for her to sit down beside him, and as they both settled on the bench, the conversation turned from casual small talk to something more personal. So, what's your story, Emily? Grant asked, his voice curious but gentle. You've shared a bit with me, but I feel like there's a lot more to you. What drives you? She paused, the question catching her off guard. No one had ever asked her that before, not in such an open, genuine way. She had always been too busy trying to make ends meet to really think about it. For a moment, Emily was quiet, lost in thought. Then, she looked at Grant, her voice soft but steady. I guess I've always wanted to make something of myself. Something that's my own. It's not about the money or the fame, really. I want to create something that matters. I've always loved art, and I've always dreamed of opening my own studio. But sometimes, it feels like that dream is just too far away. Grant nodded, listening intently. He could tell how much her words meant to her. There was no pretense in her voice, just raw honesty. I get that, he said. I've spent so much time chasing business deals and trying to please my family that I've kind of forgotten what it's like to do something just for me. To actually live for myself. But hearing you talk about your dream, it's made me realize that maybe I need to start thinking more about what I really want too. Emily turned to face him, surprised by his words. She hadn't expected him to share something so personal. What do you really want, Grant? She asked, genuinely curious. Grant smiled, a little shyly. I think I need to start living for me. Not for the company, not for my family. Just for myself. I don't know exactly what that looks like yet, but I'm starting to figure it out. And I think, maybe I've already started. He looked at her, his expression soft. Maybe that's what this is. This whatever it is between us. Maybe it's the beginning of something real. Emily felt her heart beat a little faster. The way he looked at her, the sincerity in his voice, it made her feel like they were both on the same path. A path toward something more. Something real. She smiled back at him, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. Maybe it is, she said, her voice soft but sure. I think I've been looking for something real too. The silence between them wasn't awkward, but comfortable. It was as if, for the first time in a long time, they both felt like they had found a place where they truly belonged. In each other's company. They didn't need anything else to define what was happening between them. It was just right. And maybe that was all they needed. Over the following weeks, Emily and Grant's connection grew deeper, and with each passing day, they learned more about one another. What began as a simple meeting, a chance encounter in a grand ballroom, had turned into something real, something that neither of them had expected. Emily still couldn't believe how natural it felt to be with him, and Grant had started to wonder if he was finally ready to let go of the life he had always known. They were different, yet somehow, they fit together in a way that was hard to explain. It was as if they both had been searching for this moment, and now that they had found each other, they were both reluctant to let go. One evening, Grant invited Emily to one of his family's private events, a charity auction at an exclusive venue. The kind of event he typically attended with business partners and high-profile guests. Emily was hesitant at first. She had always felt out of place at such glamorous functions, but Grant reassured her that this time was different. "You'll be with me," he said, his voice steady but warm. "And I promise, it'll be fun." His words put her at ease, and she agreed to go. When the night arrived, Emily stood in front of the mirror in her modest apartment, staring at the dress Grant had given her for the occasion. It was elegant, far more refined than anything she'd ever owned, and it made her feel like she was stepping into another world. She couldn't help but feel nervous. This wasn't just any event, it was one where she would be surrounded by the kind of people she had only ever seen in magazines. People who were used to the luxury and the spotlight. She wondered if she would feel like an outsider again. Grant arrived to pick her up at exactly 7:00 p.m., as promised. When Emily opened the door, his eyes lit up. He smiled, the expression on his face making her feel like the most important person in the room. "You look amazing," he said, his voice full of admiration. Emily blushed slightly, still adjusting to the idea of wearing something so extravagant. She had never imagined herself in this world, but with Grant beside her, she felt a little more at home. The charity auction was everything she had imagined it to be, opulent and extravagant. The venue was a grand hall, with high ceilings and gold accents everywhere. The crowd was filled with impeccably dressed men and women, all talking in hushed tones, exchanging business cards and making deals. Emily felt out of place for a moment, but then Grant gently placed his hand on the small of her back, guiding her through the crowd. "Don't worry," he said softly, "just enjoy the evening. I'm here with you." The night passed in a blur. Emily found herself laughing and chatting with people she never thought she'd have the chance to meet. Grant introduced her to several of his colleagues and clients, all of whom were curious about her background, but Emily did her best to stay true to herself. She didn't want to pretend to be someone she wasn't. She didn't have to. As the evening wore on, she felt a sense of calm settle over her. She realized that it wasn't the event or the people around her that made her feel out of place, it was her own doubts. When she was with Grant, she felt like she belonged. Later in the evening, as the auction began, Grant leaned in closer to Emily. "I have something I want to tell you," he said, his voice slow. She turned to him, her curiosity piqued. "What is it?" she asked. Grant hesitated for a moment, his expression thoughtful. "I've been thinking about this a lot lately. About us. And I just want you to know that I don't want this to be some passing thing. I know we come from different worlds, but I don't care about any of that. I care about you." Emily's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't expected him to say that. The words hung in the air, and for a moment, she wasn't sure how to respond. But then she realized that she didn't have to say anything at all. She simply nodded, a soft smile spreading across her face. She had known all along that there was something real between them. Something that didn't need to be defined by wealth or status. It was just the two of them, connected in a way that felt right. "I feel the same way," she said softly, her voice full of emotion. She reached out and took his hand in hers, the warmth of his touch sending a wave of comfort through her. Grant smiled, his eyes softening as he held her gaze. They didn't need to say anything more. The connection between them was enough. As the night drew to a close, Grant escorted Emily outside, the cool night air wrapping around them as they walked toward the car. The city lights sparkled in the distance, but all Emily could focus on was the man beside her. In that moment, she knew that whatever came next, they had something special. Something that couldn't be broken by the expectations of the world around them. "Let's go home," Grant said, his voice filled with quiet affection. Emily smiled, feeling the weight of the evening lift off her shoulders. She didn't know what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt like everything was falling into place. The weeks that followed were some of the most fulfilling for Emily. She and Grant spent more time together, getting to know each other in ways neither of them had expected. What started as an accidental connection had blossomed into something real, something neither of them had anticipated. Every moment with Grant felt like a new chapter in her life, one that was filled with excitement, laughter, and, most surprisingly, love. Emily had always dreamed of a life outside of the diner, outside of the struggles she faced daily, but she never imagined it would come in the form of someone like Grant. Yet here she was, sharing her life with a man who had shown her a world she had never known and, more importantly, one that she felt like she could belong in. Grant, too, found himself falling deeper for Emily with each passing day. There was something about her that made him feel more alive than he had in years. The way she saw the world, her unapologetic authenticity, it was everything he had been missing in his own life. She didn't care about his money, his title, or the empire he had built. She saw him for who he really was, a man, not a CEO or a billionaire. She challenged him to think about what truly mattered in life, and for the first time, he realized how much he had been neglecting the very thing that made life worth living: love, connection, and family. One evening, as they sat on the balcony of Grant's penthouse, the city skyline stretched out before them, shimmering under the stars. Emily looked over at him, a soft smile on her face, her eyes reflecting the light of the city. It was a moment that felt perfect, like everything in her life had led her to this point. She had everything she had ever wanted except for one thing. "Grant," she said, her voice steady but filled with emotion. "I've been thinking a lot lately about what you said, about how we're from different worlds. And I get it. I do. But sometimes, it feels like we're living in a bubble, like everything we have is temporary, and I don't want that. I don't want this to end." Grant turned to her, his heart skipping a beat. He hadn't expected her to say that, but it made him realize that he had been thinking about the same thing. The difference in their worlds had never bothered him before, but now, hearing Emily's words, he could sense the uncertainty she was feeling. And he understood. He, too, had felt the pull to protect what they had, but he wasn't sure how long they could keep pretending that their differences didn't matter. "Emily," Grant said softly, taking her hand in his. "I know this isn't easy. We come from different places, and I can't change that. But I can promise you this: what we have here, what we've built, it's real. And I'm not going anywhere. I don't want to lose this either." He paused, looking deeply into her eyes. "I care about you more than anything. You've changed my life in ways I can't even explain. I'm not afraid of the differences between us. I'm afraid of losing you." Emily felt a lump form in her throat as she heard his words. She had been afraid, too. Afraid that their worlds would never align, that the life she had built from scratch would never fit into his world of luxury and status. But hearing him speak so sincerely made her realize that none of that mattered. All that mattered was the way they made each other feel. All that mattered was what they had together. "I care about you too," Emily whispered, her voice barely above a whisper. "More than I ever thought I could. I just don't want to lose what we have. I don't want to wake up one day and realize we've drifted apart." Grant squeezed her hand gently, a smile tugging at his lips. "You won't lose me, Emily. Not now, not ever. I've spent so many years focused on everything else, and I've finally realized that this, right here, is what I've been missing. You've opened my eyes to something I didn't even know I was looking for. And I'm not going to let that go." The night stretched on, and for the first time, Emily felt at peace. They talked about their hopes for the future, about the kind of life they wanted to build together. It was clear to both of them that they had a long way to go, but for the first time in a long time, they felt like they were on the same page. The differences in their worlds didn't seem as insurmountable as they once did. What mattered was that they were in this together. The next few weeks passed by quickly. Emily found herself making plans for her future, plans that didn't just involve surviving, but truly living. She started looking into art schools, researching ways to make her dream of owning an art studio a reality. Grant, in the meantime, had begun to scale back his commitments at Carter Enterprises. He spent more time with Emily, more time focusing on what truly made him happy. The more time they spent together, the more they both realized that this relationship, this bond they had formed, was the real thing. One afternoon, as they walked through a quiet park near Emily's apartment, Grant stopped and turned to face her. His eyes were filled with something deeper than just affection. "Emily," he said, his voice serious yet filled with warmth, "I've never been more sure of anything in my life. I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Emily's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him, her heart racing. Grant, are you saying? Grant smiled, stepping closer. I'm saying I love you. And I want to be with you. I don't want to wait any longer. Let's make this official. Let's build the life we've always dreamed of. Without saying another word, Emily threw her arms around him, feeling the weight of her fears lift away. In that moment, everything became clear. They had found something real, something worth fighting for, and together, they would face whatever came next. It was a warm Saturday afternoon when Emily received the unexpected call. She had just finished a shift at the diner and was getting ready to head home when her phone buzzed. The number was unfamiliar, but there was something about it that made her heart skip a beat. She answered, unsure of what to expect. Hello, she said, a slight hesitation in her voice. Emily, it's Grant, came the reply, his voice as calm and steady as ever. I hope I'm not interrupting, but there's something I need to talk to you about. It's important. Her pulse quickened. She had grown used to his voice over the past few months, but there was something different in the tone this time. It was serious, more urgent. Of course, what's going on? She asked, trying to keep the nervousness from her voice. Grant sighed softly on the other end of the line. It's about the company. About my family's company. We've been facing some issues behind the scenes, and, well, things are changing. And I need your help, Emily. Emily paused for a moment, her mind racing. My help? With the company? She asked, incredulous. She had no idea how she could help with something like that. But before she could voice her confusion, Grant continued. Yes. I know it's a lot to ask. But hear me out. There's a charity event coming UPA Major Gala and I need a partner, someone who can represent me in the way my family expects. Someone who understands what it means to be part of that world, but also someone I can trust. I know this is sudden, but I can't do this alone. Emily felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. Grant, I'm not sure I understand, she said slowly. You want me to help with a charity event? But I'm just a waitress. I don't know anything about running a business or being part of. Grant interrupted gently, his voice firm yet reassuring. I don't need someone who knows the ins and outs of business. I need someone who has a heart, who understands the importance of giving back. You've shown me that, Emily. You've shown me what really matters. And I need you. This event, it's not just about the company. It's about us, our future. It's about doing something good for once, and I want you by my side. Emily was silent for a moment, processing his words. This was a lot to take in, but as she thought about it, she realized that what he was asking wasn't about business, it was about their connection. Grant trusted her, not because of what she could do for him in a business sense, but because of who she was. And that meant more to her than anything. Okay, she finally said, her voice steady. I'll do it. I'll help you. But on one condiciono. Pretending. I'm not some high society woman, Grant. I'll help, but I'm not going to be anyone I'm not. Grant's laugh echoed softly through the phone. I wouldn't want you to be anyone else, Emily. Just come with me, be yourself, and we'll take it from there. The next few days were a whirlwind of preparation. Emily was introduced to a whole new world, an extravagant one, full of high-profile individuals and corporate expectations. She was nervous, unsure of what to wear or how to behave in a crowd so unfamiliar to her. But Grant was there every step of the way, offering quiet encouragement and making sure she felt comfortable. He even arranged for a stylist to help her pick out the perfect outfit for the event. It wasn't about showing off or impressing anyone, it was about making Emily feel like she belonged. The night of the gala arrived, and Emily stood in front of the full-length mirror in the hotel room, taking a deep breath as she looked at herself. The woman who stared back at her was someone she didn't recognize, someone who had the confidence to walk into a room full of strangers and hold her head high. She wasn't just a waitress anymore. She was a part of something bigger, something she had never dreamed possible. And with Grant by her side, she felt ready. When Grant arrived at the hotel, his eyes lit up when he saw her. "You look incredible," he said, his voice filled with admiration. He wasn't just complimenting her looks, he was acknowledging the strength he saw in her, the woman who had never backed down from anything. As they entered the gala, Emily's nerves slowly melted away. She wasn't just a guest. She was there as Grant's equal, standing beside him as they mingled with the other guests. For the first time, Emily felt like she belonged, not because of her clothes or the people around her, but because of the connection she had with Grant. By the end of the evening, Emily realized that this was more than just an event. It was a turning point in her life. She wasn't just helping Grant out of some obligation, she was part of his world now, and he was part of hers. And as they left the gala together, hand in hand, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. Whatever came next, they would face it together. The days that followed the gala were filled with excitement and anticipation. Emily and Grant had crossed a line from mere acquaintances to something deeper, something more real. Grant's trust in her had become more than just a request for help with business, it had turned into a partnership, a bond they were both ready to explore further. They spent more time together, slowly allowing their feelings to evolve into something undeniable. Emily had never imagined this would be her life, spending days with a man who saw her for who she truly was, not just a waitress or someone trying to get by, but someone worthy of love and respect. With each passing day, Emily found herself falling harder for Grant, and the feeling was mutual. One evening, a few weeks after the gala, Grant surprised Emily with a spontaneous getaway. He had planned everything, from the quiet cabin in the mountains to a private dinner prepared just for the two of them. It was a break they both needed, a chance to step away from the world they had been navigating together and simply be present with each other. Emily had grown accustomed to Grant's grand gestures, but this one felt different. It wasn't about impressing anyone or fulfilling some obligation. It was just about them, about taking the time to be together, to truly get to know each other outside the distractions of their everyday lives. As they arrived at the cabin, the crisp mountain air hit them, and the beauty of the landscape left Emily speechless. It was a place far removed from the city, where the only sounds were the rustling of the trees and the distant call of wildlife. They spent the first evening by the fireplace, talking about everything and nothing. There was no pretense, no need to impress each other, just two people enjoying the simplicity of the moment. "I've been thinking a lot about what we've been building," Grant said, his voice soft as they sat side by side on the couch, the fire crackling in front of them. Us. What's happening between us? I never thought I'd find something like this. You've made me realize how much I've been missing." Emily looked over at him, her heart swelling with emotion. "I never imagined this would be my life either," she replied, her voice steady but filled with feeling. "I used to think I was meant to just survive. But now, I see things differently. You've shown me that life isn't just about getting by. It's about having someone to share it with." The silence that followed was comfortable, filled with unspoken understanding. It wasn't necessary for them to say more. They both knew what they felt for each other, and it was more than enough. Emily had always dreamed of a life where she wasn't just scraping by, where she was part of something bigger, something real. With Grant, she had found that. Later that night, as they stood outside under the vast expanse of stars, Grant took Emily's hand in his grip firm yet gentle. The night was quiet, almost too perfect, and Emily felt a sense of peace wash over her. She had always believed that she wasn't meant for a life like this, but in this moment, with Grant standing beside her, everything felt right. "I want you to know something, Emily," Grant said, turning toward her. "I've been holding back for a while. I've been scared, unsure of what all this means. But after spending this time with you, I'm sure of one thing: I don't want to let you go. I don't want to lose what we have. I love you, Emily. I love you in a way I never thought I could love someone." Emily's breath caught in her throat as she looked at him, her heart pounding in her chest. She had never expected him to say those words, but now that he had, it felt like everything she had hoped for was coming true. Her life, her dreams, her love, it was all happening. And it was happening with him. I love you too, Grant, she whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I've never felt this way about anyone before. You've shown me what it means to truly live. The moment hung between them, suspended in time. Grant leaned in, his lips brushing gently against hers, sealing the promise that neither of them had to say aloud. They had found something rare, something real. And together, they were ready to face whatever came next. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, Emily knew that this was only the beginning. They had built something strong, something worth fighting for, and she was no longer just surviving, she was living. And for the first time, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be. As the months passed, Emily and Grant's relationship continued to flourish, becoming stronger with each day. The connection they had was undeniable, and their lives began to merge in ways they hadn't imagined possible. Emily had grown in confidence, no longer the woman struggling to make ends meet. She was pursuing her dream of opening an art studio, and with Grant's support, the walls of doubt that had once held her back slowly crumbled. Meanwhile, Grant had scaled back his responsibilities at Carter Enterprises, realizing that the life he had been building wasn't fulfilling without the presence of someone he truly cared for. He was learning to balance the demands of his family and business with his personal happiness, something he had never thought was possible until he met Emily. One evening, as the two of them walked through the park near their apartment, hand in hand, Emily looked up at Grant. The city lights flickered in the distance, casting a soft glow on their path. She had never been happier, and the life they had created together felt like a dream come true. Grant, she began, her voice soft but steady, I've been thinking a lot lately. About us. About everything. Grant turned to her, his face full of warmth and curiosity. What's on your mind? He asked, his voice gentle. He could see the emotion in her eyes, and he knew this was an important moment. Emily took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words. I never imagined this life. I didn't think I would ever get to a point where I could honestly say I'm happy. Not just with where I am, but with who I'm with. You've shown me that I'm capable of more than I ever believed. You've changed my life, Grant. Grant stopped walking and turned to face her fully, his expression softening. I feel the same way, he said, his voice thick with emotion. When I met you, I was lost. I didn't know what was missing in my life until you came into it. You've made me realize that there's more to life than just business and family expectations. There's love. There's real connection. There's you. Emily felt her heart swell as she looked at him. She had never felt so certain about anything in her life. And I want to keep building this life with you, Grant, she said, her voice unwavering. I want to see where we can go from here. Together. Grant smiled, his heart full. He gently took her hands in his, holding them with a sense of finality. Emily, I don't need anything else. I don't need to prove myself to anyone, not anymore. All I need is you. Emily's breath caught in her throat as the weight of his words settled in. She felt an overwhelming sense of peace, as if everything had finally fallen into place. I love you, Grant, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. Grant's smile deepened, and he pulled her into a gentle embrace, holding her tightly as the cool evening air wrapped around them. I love you too, he murmured, his voice full of sincerity. And I promise, I'll never let you go. Not ever. In that moment, Emily knew without a doubt that she had found her place. She had found love, real and unconditional, with someone who saw her, truly saw her, for the first time in her life. And she knew that whatever challenges they would face in the future, they would face them together. It was a new chapter, one that held endless possibilities. With Grant by her side, she was ready for anything. As they stood there, wrapped in each other's arms, the world seemed to fade away. Nothing else mattered. They had each other, and that was all they needed. The future was theirs to shape, and with love as their foundation, they knew they would be unstoppable.